you two sit close and listen, because this is not the kind of tale you hear in town under bright lamps with people pretending they are not afraid of the dark. This one belongs to the forest, and the forest does not like to be laughed at. I will tell it the way it was told to me, not polished, not softened, just the truth, with the rough edges still on it. Years ago, when I still walked farther than I do now, there was a stretch of woodland beyond the last farms, where hunters refused to go alone. They had a simple rule. If your dog stops wagging its tail, you turn back. If the birds go silent, you turn back. And if you ever see footprints that do not make sense, you do not try to make them make sense, you turn back. Ah, but people are proud, and pride is louder than wisdom. There was a man named Camille, not a hero, not a villain, just a man who believed he could handle whatever the world placed in front of him. He was a courier, the kind that carries letters and small parcels between villages. He knew every shortcut, every bend in the road, every place where the ground stayed dry after rain. He also knew how it felt to be hungry, and how it felt to be paid late, and how it felt to look at a child's face when the pantry was nearly empty. That winter was sharp, the kind that steals your breath before you've said a word. One evening, Camille was given a job that sounded simple: a sealed pouch, a wax stamp, and an order to deliver it before dawn to a house near the edge of the forest. The pay was good. The pay was immediate. He should have asked why. But when hunger is sitting in your home, you don't ask as many questions. He left after sunset, thinking he could outrun the night. He walked fast, then faster, keeping his eyes on the path and his mind on the coins he would carry back. The trees thickened as he went, and the road narrowed the way roads always do when they begin to belong to the forest instead of people. At first, everything was normal. He heard the usual things: distant wind, a branch creaking, the faint sound of water somewhere below. But as he went deeper, the small comforts of sound began to fade. Not all at once. Slowly, like someone closing a door without wanting you to notice. By the time he reached the old stone marker that locals used as a turning point, he realized he had not heard a single bird for a long while. Even the insects seemed to have decided they were busy elsewhere. Camille stopped there, just for a moment, and told himself he was imagining it. People always do that. They call warning signs imagination, because it is easier than admitting fear. He continued. The house he was meant to reach did not appear on any map. It was described to him with the kind of directions people give when they don't want responsibility. Past the split oak, down the narrow slope. If you see the dead well, you've gone too far. Ah, a dead well. Even saying it now makes my tongue want to move more slowly. Camille found the split oak, found the slope, and found the dead well. He stood beside it and felt the air around him change. Not colder, not warmer, just different. Like stepping into a room where a conversation stops the moment you enter. He looked down into the well. He saw nothing but darkness. He dropped a small stone and listened. No sound returned. That should have been enough. But he had the pouch, and he had the promise of money, and he had a stubborn heart that still believed the world behaved according to his plans. So he stepped past the well, and that is where the footprints began. They were fresh, pressed into the thin layer of snow that had fallen earlier. 3 sets side by side, all heading the same direction. Camille crouched and studied them by the faint light he carried. 2 sets were normal, boot prints, human, heavy, the tread pattern clear. He could tell the left foot belonged to someone who walked slightly turned outward. He could tell the right foot belonged to someone who dragged a little, as if their knee hurt. But the 3rd set... the 3rd set is why you're listening to me now. It looked like a footprint, but it was wrong in a way that made the mind uncomfortable. Too long in the heel, too narrow at the front, as if the foot had been shaped by someone who only heard about humans, never actually saw one. There were no tread marks, no nails, no leather pattern, just a smooth impression, clean as if pressed by bare skin. Yet it was winter, and nobody walks barefoot out there unless they want to die. Camille stared at it, and did what proud people always do. He tried to explain it. "Some fool," he whispered to himself. "Some drunk fool." He followed. The prince led away from the well and into a stand of trees where the branches grew lower, the way they do when the forest wants to hide things. The moonlight barely reached the ground, but the snow helped, pale enough to guide him. As he walked, the 3rd set of prints stayed beside the other 2, never lagging behind, never stepping ahead. Always there, always smooth, always wrong. Camille's mouth went dry. He swallowed. He told himself again that he was imagining things. He told himself it was only the cold making his thoughts strange. He told himself that once he delivered the pouch, he would turn back and laugh at his own fear. People always promise themselves laughter, as if laughter can undo what they have already seen. After a while, he noticed something else. The boot prints occasionally slipped, just slightly, the way boots do when snow hides ice. Sometimes one heel would slide and cut a thin line, but the 3rd footprints never slipped. Not once. Camille stopped again. He held his light out, not forward, but down toward the ground, as if the truth would climb up into his face. He saw very clearly that the 3rd prints did not press down like weight. They seemed to appear perfect, as if placed rather than stepped. He stood there too long, and in the forest, standing still for too long is an invitation. He heard a sound behind him, not a footstep, not a branch snapping. Something softer, like fabric brushing bark, like a hand passing across leaves. Camille did not turn around immediately. He told himself not to. He told himself if he turned, he would see something he could not forget. But curiosity is a knife. It cuts whether you want it to or not. He turned. He saw nobody. Only trees. Only darkness between them. And yet, he felt very strongly that he was no longer alone. He faced forward again, and for the first time since leaving the road, he spoke aloud, not to anyone in particular. "I'm only delivering," he said. "I'm not looking for trouble." Silence answered him. The footprints continued. Soon through the trees he saw the house. It was smaller than he expected. Not a cabin, not a farmhouse. Something in between, built low to the ground, as if it didn't want to stand up and be noticed. The windows were dark. No smoke rose. No lantern light greeted him. Camille's courage thinned. The kind of courage that comes from pride always does. He walked up to the door and knocked. Once, twice. No answer. He knocked again, harder, and called out the name he had been given. Still nothing. Then he noticed the footprints. The 2 boot trails stopped at the door. The 3rd trail stopped too, but not directly. It stopped slightly to the side, as if whoever made them did not approach the door like a person would, as if it waited where it could see the doorway without standing in front of it. Ah, yes, that detail, that small detail, is what makes the hairs rise on your arms. Camille reached into his coat and pulled out the pouch. He raised it, unsure why, as if showing it might summon whoever was meant to take it. "I have it," he said, voice low. "Open the door." And then, from inside the house, he heard something. Not words, a breath. Slow, close, on the other side of the door. Camille froze. He did not knock again. He did not speak again. He simply waited, holding the pouch as if it were suddenly heavier than coins. The door did not open, but the breath remained. And then the breath moved, not away, not deeper into the house, but along the inside of the door, as if someone were walking behind it without footsteps. Camille's throat tightened. He forced himself to swallow. "I was paid," he said, trying to sound firm. "I deliver. That's all." The breath stopped. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, very softly, he heard a sound like a fingernail dragging across wood. Once, twice, 3 times. Not from the outside, from within. Camille took 1 step backward, then another. He did not want to run. Running makes you clumsy, and clumsiness makes you loud, and loudness makes you easy to find. He looked down, and his stomach turned. The 3rd footprints had moved. They were no longer beside the others. They were behind him now. Close. So close that only a small gap of snow remained between his heel and that smooth, wrong shape. Camille's hands shook. He tightened his grip on the pouch. And in that moment he understood the oldest truth in the forest. Sometimes the thing you are delivering is not the pouch. Sometimes it is you. Camille did not run. People always say they would run, but when the moment comes, the body chooses something else. The body chooses stillness first, as if it can hide by becoming quiet. He stood there with the pouch in his hand, looking down at the snow, and he felt the strange certainty that if he lifted his eyes too quickly, he would see something that would never leave him. He told himself very carefully to breathe. Not as a technique, not as a trick, just as a way to keep from falling apart. He kept his lips closed so his breath would not fog the air too loudly. He kept his shoulders tight so they would not shake. He kept his feet planted because he did not trust his legs to move without betraying him. And the breath behind the door remained. The sound was faint, almost polite, like someone pretending to be human. Camille raised the pouch slightly again, and the wax seal caught a thin sliver of light. He had the sudden thought that the seal looked too bright, too red, like a small wound in the dark. He wanted to hide it. He wanted to throw it into the snow. He wanted to pretend he had never come. But he had been paid, and he had a family. And pride, even when it is scared, still whispers that you have to finish what you started. He tried to speak again. "I'll leave it here," he said, and his voice sounded thinner than he expected. "I'll set it down and go." The breath stopped. not faded, stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier, as if the air itself had become thicker. Camille's mouth went dry. He stood there, listening, waiting for anything that would prove he was not alone with something he could not understand. Then came the sound again. The faint drag across wood, slow and deliberate, as if someone were writing a message using only one nail. Camille's mind tried to turn it into something harmless. An animal, a loose branch, the wind shifting the doorframe. But you can lie to yourself only until your body refuses to cooperate. His hands trembled. He lowered the pouch to the ground with care, as if the act itself might anger whatever was listening. He set it beside the door, close enough to reach without stepping out. Then he took 2 steps backward. The snow crunched under his boots, and he hated the sound of it. He hated that the forest could hear him. He hated that the house could hear him. He hated that whatever had left those smooth footprints could hear him. He looked down again. The 3rd footprints had shifted closer. They did not show the messy signs of movement. No slide, no scuff, no disturbance. They were simply nearer than before, as if distance meant nothing to whoever made them. Camille's throat tightened. He swallowed, and the swallow sounded too loud in his own ears. "I'm leaving," he whispered. He turned, slowly, trying to keep his head level, trying not to move like prey. He wanted to walk away in the calm manner of a man who belonged in the forest, not a man trespassing in it. He made it 3 steps. Then the door spoke. Not with words. With a sound that was almost a laugh, but not quite. A low, wet exhale that made the hairs on Camille's neck rise. It did not sound pleased. It did not sound angry either. It sounded curious. Camille stopped again, despite himself. And then he heard the smallest sound of all. A soft tap. The kind of sound a fingertip makes when it touches wood. Once, twice. Then a pause. Then 3 taps in a row. Camille stared at the door as if it were a face. His mind began to form patterns. His mind began to count. He understood suddenly that the taps were not random. They were an answer. He did not know to what question. But the door had responded. Camille's courage cracked in a quiet way. He realized this was not a simple delivery. He realized he had walked into something older than his job, older than the village rules, older than the stories people told to scare children into staying near home. He turned back toward the door because curiosity is not always bravery. Sometimes it is just another kind of weakness. His eyes moved down to the pouch where he had placed it. The wax seal was broken, not torn, not snapped, broken as if it had simply decided to open. Camille did not see a hand reach out. He did not see the door open. He only saw the seal that had been whole a moment before, now cracked. The wax split cleanly down the center, and the pouch had been opened. A sick cold crept through Camille's stomach. He took 1 step forward, then stopped, unsure why he was moving at all. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was the need to confirm what he already knew. He leaned slightly, without bending too far. Inside the pouch was not a letter. It was a small strip of cloth. Old cloth, dark, folded with care. On it was a symbol, stitched in thread so pale it looked like bone. Camille did not recognize it. But as he stared, his eyes began to feel strange, as if the symbol did not want to be seen directly. He blinked hard. The symbol seemed to shift, not moving like an object, but changing in the way a thought changes when you are trying to hold it still. Camille pulled back sharply, and his boots slid slightly on the snow. His heart hammered once, hard enough to hurt. He looked down again to steady himself, and that is when he saw something that made his blood go cold. A fourth set of footprints had appeared, smaller than the boot prints, smaller than the smooth ones, bare human feet, tiny, as if a child had been standing there. But there had been no child, no sound, no movement. Only snow and silence, and the door that would not open. Camille's mind refused it. It rejected the idea the way the tongue rejects a bitter taste. He turned his head slightly, scanning the edge of the clearing near the house, expecting to see someone small and pale and trembling. He saw nothing. But the small footprints pointed away from the door, leading toward the trees, leading into the dark, and the two boot trails, the ones that had been there from the beginning, had turned as well, as if whoever wore those boots had followed the small bare feet. Camille's breath became shallow. He felt his body react before his mind could decide what to do. He took a step back from the pouch and the cloth and the symbol. Then he heard a sound behind him, close enough that he felt it rather than heard it. A slow, soft exhale, not from inside the house, behind him. Camille froze. He did not turn. He did not want to. He held his breath and listened for proof that his fear was inventing this. But the sound came again, closer, as if something leaned in toward the side of his head. Camille's skin tightened. His hands curled into fists. His jaw locked. Then a voice spoke. Not loud, not clear, but a voice all the same. It said his name, Camille. Not as a shout, not as a warning, as if someone had always known it. Ah, that is a terrible thing, to hear your name spoken by a mouth you cannot see. Camille's knees threatened to buckle. He forced them straight. He whispered, "Who are you?" There was no answer. Instead, he heard something else. Footsteps. Not boots. Not bare feet. Something smooth. The third footprints. He could hear them without hearing them, if that makes any sense. His body sensed the movement, like a pressure shifting in the air. Then the voice spoke again, still close, still calm. Follow. Only that. One word. No demand. No explanation. Camille shook his head once, barely moving. "I can't," he whispered. "I delivered it." The voice did not argue. It simply repeated, "Follow." Camille's mind raced. He tried to remember every story he had ever heard, every rule about the forest, every warning. Don't follow lights. Don't follow voices. Don't follow footsteps that do not match what you can see. Yet the small bare footprints were there, leading into the trees, and the two boot trails had followed them already, disappearing into the dark. Camille realized something that made his throat burn. He was not the first courier to come here. Those boot prints were older than his, pressed deeper. They belonged to men who had stood where he stood, carrying something they thought was simple. And they had followed. Camille took one step toward the trees, then stopped. He hated himself for moving at all. He hated his own curiosity. He hated the part of him that wanted to know what waited in the dark. But the voice had spoken his name. It had not guessed. It had not asked. It had known. That knowledge felt like a hook in his chest. So he did what a frightened man sometimes does when he believes he has no choice. He followed the footprints. He moved slowly at first, careful, keeping his light low, not letting it swing. He stepped where the boot prints had stepped because that felt safer than stepping into untouched snow. He kept his eyes on the ground because looking ahead felt like inviting something to appear. The small bare feet led him between trees that grew closer together. The path was not a path. It was simply where the footprints went, and the forest shaped itself around them. After a short distance, he noticed something strange. The small footprints were not sinking into the snow the way a child's feet would. They were too clean, too perfect. And the boot prints behind them were beginning to fade. Not because snow covered them, because the snow beneath them looked untouched, as if the prints had never been there. Camille stopped and looked back. The way back was there, but it was wrong. The trees seemed closer, the space between them less familiar, the darkness thicker. He turned forward again, and his light caught something pale hanging from a branch. A strip of cloth, the same kind as in the pouch, stitched with the same bone-coloured symbol. Camille's stomach tightened. He understood then that he was not following a trail. He was being led, and whoever was leading him wanted him to keep moving until something happened that could not be undone. He whispered, "I want to go back." The voice came again, close to his ear, calm as a thought. Too late. Camille swallowed hard and kept walking. Because sometimes in the forest, the moment you stop is the moment you are caught. Camille walked until the cold stopped feeling sharp and began to feel distant. That was the first sign. At first, he thought his body was simply numbing itself, protecting him from fear the way it sometimes does. But then he realized something was missing. The ache in his legs, the burn in his lungs. Even the sound of his own footsteps had faded into something dull and far away, like a memory of walking rather than walking itself. He stopped. The footprints did not. The small bare feet continued forward, smooth and clean in the snow, leading him deeper between the trees. The third prints stayed close behind him now, not ahead, not beside. Behind, as if whatever made them no longer needed to pretend it was guiding him. Camille swallowed and forced himself to breathe. He lifted his light slightly, just enough to see beyond the next row of trees, and that is when he saw the clearing. It was wider than the others, round and deliberate, as if the forest had shaped it on purpose. The snow there was untouched, no footprints, no tracks, no sign that anyone had ever stood there before. Except in the center. Something stood there. Not a person, not an animal. It was shaped like a person only if you believed shape was enough. Tall, thin, pale against the dark, its surface smooth in the way stone can be smooth after too many years under water. Where a face should have been, there was only a suggestion of features, like someone had tried to remember what a face looked like and failed. Camille's light trembled. The figure did not move. The footprints stopped at the edge of the clearing, as if they were unwilling to go any farther. The small bare feet ended there, neat and final. The third prints did not appear beside them. Camille understood suddenly that they no longer needed to. He stepped forward on his own. The cold returned all at once, biting into his skin, his bones, his thoughts. His heart hammered so hard he thought it might tear itself loose. He wanted to turn back, but the forest behind him felt closed, dense, unwilling to open again. The figure spoke. Not aloud. The sound formed inside Camille's head, calm and clear, as if it had always been there. "You carried what was asked," it said. Camille nodded, though his neck felt stiff, as if resisting the motion. "I delivered it," he said. His voice sounded small, even to himself. "I did what I was paid to do." "Yes," the voice replied. "You brought the mark." The symbol, the cloth, the pouch. Camille felt a wave of anger push through his fear. Anger was easier to hold on to. Anger felt like control. "You tricked me," he said. "You made me come here." The figure did not deny it. "We do not force," the voice said. "We invite, you followed." Camille clenched his fists. Others followed too. "Yes." "And they never came back?" "Yes." The honesty of it chilled him more than any lie could have. "What do you want from me?" Camille asked. The figure tilted its head slightly, a gesture that felt practiced, learned. "We want what you brought," it said, "and what comes with it." Camille's stomach tightened. "My life." "Sometimes," the voice said. "Not always." The words hung there, heavy and uncertain. Camille thought of his home, of the road he knew, of the weight of coins promised for this job, of how small those things felt now. He swallowed. "What happens if I refuse?" The figure was silent for a long moment. Then it answered. "You already said yes." Camille's breath hitched. "When?" "When you stepped past the well," the voice said. "When you followed what did not belong. When you did not turn back." The truth of it cut deep. Camille closed his eyes. In the darkness behind his lids, memories rose uninvited. Faces, voices, the warmth of a small room, the smell of food cooking, a child laughing. He opened his eyes again and looked at the figure. "What happens to the people who follow?" he asked. "They are remembered," the voice said, "and used." "Used for what?" The figure gestured slowly toward the trees. "To walk where we cannot, to knock where we cannot, to bring what we cannot touch." Camille laughed once, short and bitter. "So I'm a courier, even now?" "Yes." The simplicity of the answer broke something in him. He stood there, trembling, and understood that running would change nothing. Fighting would change nothing. Screaming would only satisfy the forest's curiosity. But there was one thing he could still do. He reached into his coat. The figure did not stop him. Camille pulled out a small knife, the one he used for cutting rope and bread. It was ordinary, worn smooth by years of use. He held it up. "You want me to follow," he said. "You want me to walk your paths, carry your marks." "Yes." "Then take this too," Camille said. "Take the part of me that chooses." The figure was still. Camille pressed the blade against his palm and drew it across, not deep, but enough. Blood welled, dark and real. He let it fall into the snow. The forest reacted, not with sound, not with movement, with attention. The blood did not sink into the snow. It spread outward, thin and branching, like roots searching for ground. The figure recoiled slightly. "This was not offered," the voice said. "I'm offering it now," Camille replied, his voice steady despite the pain. "Not as a courier, not as a mark, as myself." The clearing felt tense, like a held breath. Then the figure began to change, its edges blurred, its shape lost coherence. The smooth surface rippled, as if whatever held it together was reconsidering. The voice came again, quieter now. "This is not how it is done." Camille shook his head. "It is how I'm doing it." The figure stepped back. For the first time since leaving the road, Camille felt something shift in his favor. The footprints behind him vanished. The third prints were gone. The small bare feet were gone. The clearing felt less occupied. The figure spoke one last time. "You will not return unchanged," it said. Camille nodded. "I don't expect to." The figure faded, not disappearing so much as losing interest, dissolving into the dark between trees. The clearing emptied, leaving only snow and silence behind. Camille stood alone. The forest did not close in. It opened. A path appeared where none had been before, faint but clear, leading back toward familiar ground. Camille did not run. He walked. By the time he reached the edge of the woods, dawn was beginning to thin the darkness. His hand ached, his body shook, but he was alive. He never delivered another pouch. He never took another shortcut through that forest. And when people asked why he walked the long way around, he simply said the road was safer. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind moves through trees just right, Camille feels a pressure behind his eyes, a memory of smooth footprints, of a voice that knew his name. The forest did not take him, but it did not forget him either. And that is how these stories survive, not because everyone who enters the dark is lost, but because some come back carrying warnings, and most people choose not to listen.